And joining me now to dig deeper on all this is Senior Fellow at Defense Priorities, retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. Thanks again for being with us. It's always great to have you on, sir. So let's begin with Ukraine, where the U.S. aid to Ukraine was at the center of the conversation clearly. So I'm just wondering how you see it. How critical is the U.S. aid to the Ukrainian war effort? And is President Trump's assessment correct? Would Ukraine have fallen so soon without American weapons? How do you see it?
Yeah, first of all, it's black and white for sure that would have happened. Everybody in the West, who includes Zelensky, has been saying that really from the outset, that without the United States, this war would have been over right away, just because they don't have the wherewithal or even the psychological support, which is in some ways as important as the physical support. But there is an underlying premise here that so many in the West and almost everybody I've seen so far is missing, that is vital to this conversation. And that is this belief that if we just give more stuff, if we give more support, if we keep on funneling the Ukraine, that somehow that they can avoid defeat. No one's even talking about victory anymore. But if you don't look at the balance of power between the two sides, and you can't recognize that Russia is in the decisive and irrevocable advantage. Russia doesn't have to have a negotiation. They can take on the battlefield everything they want, and the cumulative West and Ukraine together can't stop them. If they don't understand that, then all these negotiations and finer points of nuance are meaningless, because Russia doesn't have to give in on any of them. So there's no great deal to be had, and I think that President Trump recognizes that. And based on what Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, said this morning, he seems to wonder, does Zelensky even want peace, or does he want to keep fighting? Because he seems to reject every opportunity to even talk about peace, because that means a negotiated settlement that's not in his favor. But that's the reality. And there's until we recognize that, this is going to get uglier.
Yeah, I was checking out your social last night, and you wrote on X, pouring more good money after bad policy in regards to what is happening here that we're watching unfold. And as we take a look at it, there's so much work that needs to be done. I do want to ask you now to the war on the Middle East, phase 2 negotiations halting in Cairo after Hamas says no progress has been made in those ceasefire talks. So as you see it, does this delay surprise you? What could be holding up these talks?
No, this certainly doesn't surprise me. If anything, I'm surprised that it's lasted. The ceasefire has lasted this long. A lot of the signals, especially coming out of Israel, are that many in their government don't want a ceasefire. They didn't want this ceasefire at all, and they want to go back to trying to militarily succeed and to defeat Hamas. I think that is a huge mistake, and I hope that President Trump doesn't support that, because it's not going to be good for Israel. They didn't get them in 16 months. We saw that they were undefeated. They had been harmed. But if you keep going back to that, then all you're going to do is increase the cost to lose even more. They're going to have some kind of a negotiated settlement that ends the war and gives everybody a chance to recover from this. If they go back to fighting, I think that it's going to end up in a strategic defeat for Israel.
And they say timing is everything, right? So could the Ramadan holiday, which begins today, make negotiations more difficult? I mean, what are we looking at here?
No, I think both sides have shown that even the Jewish side on some of their high holidays and the Sabbath, et cetera, they're willing to put that aside when it comes to, no kidding life and death negotiations. And I think that the same will be on the other side. And both sides have reason to want this ceasefire to work, and elements on both sides have reason not to. So it's probably an internal debate within each camp, and we'll see who ends up winning, because if one of the side that wants war on either side wins and they turn it back on, then everything that's been accomplished so far could be undone quickly. And of course, the people in both Israel and especially in the Palestine areas would be the big losers there. So I sincerely hope that doesn't happen.
As we take a live look at people celebrating Ramadan in Mecca, that's what you're looking at on your screen right now. We'll continue this conversation because if talks don't resume, what could it really mean for the more than 50 hostages still being held by Hamas? We've got to keep our eye on that.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why the Hamas side negotiated, painfully to drag that out by, dribs and drabs. They want to let them go at certain point. That was very tactical, because they want to give as much time as they can to reach a settlement. And they want to give Israel enough so that Israel doesn't restart the war, so that they get their hostages back. but they also realize that the day that last hostage that they have is returned to Israel, all their leverage is gone to do anything. And then the chances of the war resuming go up. So if Israel wants those hostages back, I think that they're going to have to come up with some kind of a plan that the Hamas or the Palestinian side can live with, at least, so that they have motivation and some kind of trust to give those hostages back. And I think that's one of the most key things in there, that I can't imagine the anguish of those families that are still family members held hostage because they've seen these other people come back, and just the missing. I'd love to see that over quickly.
Absolutely. So many people watching that part of it. And you're right, to those families who are just waiting and hoping that they're going to have the same stroke of luck, right, to get their loved ones back. A senior fellow at Defense Priorities, retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, thank you so much for joining us. Love your podcast, by the way. I listened to a bit of it last night. Great job.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.